Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Michael Golden.
Dude, you're looking so sharp this morning.
So sharp. I feel fresh. I
was not expecting a fresh Will halfway through, or at least after the first night of VRMA. So
hey, the Cassiola beach party, they did it right. It was great. It was great. But I kept it under wraps. I knew we had a big episode today. Figured, I get to talk to Niko and see him for a second time on a podcast. I'm gonna bring my A game. Plus, it's Monday. Gotta be fresh.
Did anybody spot Will? Find Will?
I hit a little too good, so I had to move my location a little closer in the jungle. And once I was discovered, I got to give away my free throws. So, I got dunked after about 35 minutes of being up there, which was painful. There was a lot
Who
of.
Who got you?
Ginny, my COO, she got me. So it was great to see Steve Milo be a champ and get dunked at the end. Really went for it. And Ryan Bailey, though, shout out to one of our sponsors at TravelNet. He got on the dunk tank. No one could get him. So after a while, he just got off. He was like, I'm done. See ya. I got things to do. He left. So shout out to TravelNet. It was just
if it was past 10 o'clock, I'd be gone too.
Yeah. So he wasn't there for it. But how you feeling today, man? You excited for this episode? We're missing Brandy. She's on a panel session. Jamie Lane was at the party last night, but had a 7:15 a.m. session to do already. So they're just killing us with these sessions at VRMA this year.
Who does a 7:15? And then nobody's going to show up for that.
I hope. Poor Jamie. I'm like, I hope somebody at least showed up for the guy. Yeah. I was in bed. I wasn't even caffeinated yet.
But yeah, I'm excited to dive in today. I've gotten to know a couple of the big European operators through the years, and Niko and Bob W is one that I haven't had the opportunity to learn about. So very excited to have him on board and learn what they're doing and how they're doing it differently than both the European operators as well as the big American operators.
I love it. Well, we have a tight schedule today, so let's welcome Niko Karstikko, the CEO and co-founder of Bob W. Niko.
Thanks for the applause. Thanks for having me on board, guys. Super nice to see you again, Will, and nice to meet you, Michael.
You as well. We ran in the same circles back in college and didn't even know it.
That's right. Who would have known that a kid from the Arctic northern parts of Europe would end up in South Carolina and spend time in the southeast of the U.S., but it was a great experience.
Good. Well, lots of questions for you, but before we jump into it, do you want to give a brief overview of Bob W, maybe how you started and kind of where you are today?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm from Finland originally, but grew up in the UK and the States. I'm a tech entrepreneur by background. Built a fitness activities marketplace from 2012 to 2017 and exited to corporate benefits conglomerate, and been always kind of involved where technology and physical services or intersect. Been an Airbnb super host since 2012. First, my apartment, investment apartment. So I ended up having a little side hustle of 7 apartments. And, and then in 2017, when I exited the last business and decided I wanted to go travel in Asia to find, as we said with Will, yin yang or zen or whatever I could get my hands on and take a break, ended up figuring out, how am I going to manage these 7 apartments completely remotely? And of course, you find ways, and 6 months of soap in the closet, chat-based customer service, couple of good backup plans, good to-do list for the cleaners, and give them a bit broader mandate than a normal cleaner to sort things out. And of course, then that works out. But as a startup entrepreneur, with that tech background, you're always thinking, this whole short stay rental, Airbnb is, feels like such an amateur show that, if you were actually in control of the technology, the hardware, the software, the IoT devices, as well as the space, you'd have the commercial resources to really create a space, for the next generation of travel, the Airbnb generation. You could actually not just meet the expectation of what people have for hotels, but exceed that for that next generation of traveler. And that was really the sort of undercurrent. And then looking at, the hotel industry being super consolidated, especially, across Europe. You have 7 million-ish hotel rooms, and you've got approximately 50% brand or brand affiliated. You've got brands that represent standards, and you've got standards to begin with, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. But look at the short stay rental space in Europe. We're pushing on 4 to 5 million listings, depending on how you count it. Super fragmented space. There is no Hiltons and Marriotts of that space. It's, according to some studies, like 0.5% branded. And there is no standards. There's no such thing as a 4-star, 1-bedroom short stay apartment. There's not even, a name for it. Short stays, short-term rentals, vacation rentals, extended stay, service departments,
alternative accommodation. Yeah.
And or as consumers say Airbnb, which in Europe is, a little bit less than 20% of the market, but they don't own, manage, or rent apartments. It's an OTA, a very innovative OTA, but it's an OTA at the end of the day. And of course, that's where Bob W came around. It's like, okay, we're going to create a new hybrid category, which is a hybrid of a hotel and an Airbnb. So from the hotel, the commercial, the branded promise with a Bob, what you get, the commercial scale, and the legality of commercial properties, as you guys know, especially in Europe, we have similar to what you guys have in the States and in New York, of cutting down on that side of things. And on the other hand, you've got, the magic of the sort of Airbnb type world and the utility of an apartment. So you've got kitchens, washing machines, dishwashers, but also people are looking for that authentic, live like a local vibes, and they're looking for, they're looking to live out, for a different set of use cases to satisfy their needs. So we put all of that together, this hybrid category, called it Bob W, who is the avatar of the perfect host. He's the best host you've ever had on Airbnb times 10. Speaks 9 languages, clearly well educated, but a man of the people. Knows the neighborhoods better than the concierge ever could, and doesn't take a lunch break, doesn't even go out for a cigarette. Answers your chats on average in 1 minute 20 seconds, and is just the best host out there. We built that whole brand around Bob, which is of course for that next generation of travel.
So Bob is AI, but Bob also stands for something, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So Bob is not just AI. Bob is a mix of AI tools, automations, and real people. So important to note, like Bob is literally the best host. We're ranked 4.8 out of 5 based on all public ratings. 2021, 2022 average, for example. That makes us Europe's best ranked international hospitality operator, kicking butt against the Four Seasons, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the other tech enabled competitors, etc. And it's just, we just have that best product market fit for that new generation of travel, and a big part of that's having this amazing hosting. So Bob's genuinely there for you, and we'll always sort you out. But he obviously stands for best of both worlds, which really the name kind of stuck around. We always wanted to be around the host, and we were like trying to come up with Viking names, because I guess I'm from the Nordics, and at the time you had all these like different Viking TV shows, but then Ragnar and Kari just didn't roll off people's tongues that good. So somebody pointed out that, hey, you guys, you keep talking that you're the base of this whole concept is this best of both worlds, the hotel and the Airbnb, the hotel and the short stay. And this best of both worlds, if you chuck it into an acronym, it's Bob W. That sounds like a host. And we thought, Bob sounds like a great guy. It's available on, there's nothing obscene coming out of Google, and the URL's good to go. So let's roll with it. And that's really how the most loved host on the market came about.
Beautiful. So I'd say 85% of our listeners are from America. And we've seen in the past year or so, Sonder kind of take a nosedive in terms of valuation. We've seen Kasai fold their doors. Year or two prior, we saw a few others like Stay Alfred and Domio completely shut down.
Lyric.
What makes you guys different when you're playing in kind of the same vision, the same category of building the branded short-term rental, the branded suites that are more like a hotel?
Yeah. So I guess in short, you're referring to the tech-enabled play. Maybe that's something we forgot to mention, that we of course build our own tech and consider it that's really enables us to scale and to differentiate and give a better customer experience. Well, I guess we'll probably touch upon that later. So yes, we fall under, roughly speaking, the same category. And this, by the way, is an absolute massive category that's got plenty of rooms for the next Hiltons and the Marriotts. So I can wholeheartedly say I only wish the best for our tech-enabled competitors, and that that goes without saying. I think the challenges have been, to a certain degree, this. If I get a little bit philosophical before we then get on to the actual differentiators, is coming myself from the tech space as well, we've had an unprecedented amount of capital available for us over the last 10 plus years, up until the recent points. And that's obviously then educated us, the tech startup founders, the peeps rethinking the industries or trying to rethink industries and going at it, as all right, we've got all this capital available. You take a kind of a different view to growing businesses, and so you're like, okay, I'll just build this cool piece of software now, and then someday the scale is going to be so huge that the unit economics will all make sense. Like, I'm oversimplifying, but that's kind of how it works, right? When you got an big idea, people buy into that big idea, and all you need is capital, and eventually the unit economics will pan out. Now, how we've seen it with the guys that you mentioned, as well as the WeWorks of the world, is like, if we oversimplify it, is they took the view that, okay, let's scale this, let's split scale, as the cool term up until 2 years ago was, and but you can't scale leases. You just can't scale. Like, I mean, if you're paying too much, you just simply can't. And I think that ultimately underwriting is one of these things that probably the sort of gun-ho risk capital of the world, didn't really take into account that, the shit lease is a shit lease 5 years down the line as it was today. And I think that was, so we just got started with our first fundraising when WeWork imploded. And of course, that was all around leases and stuff like that. So we've spent our entire fundraising life explaining how we're not the next WeWork. Now, luckily, I've got a stickler for financial prudency co-founder. It was this German guy, German stereotype on steroids, Sebastian. And he's just like, he has never let anything slide that doesn't make financial sense, which, again, me coming from a startup gun-ho founder, I would have rode this thing off a cliff 3 years ago. But luckily I've got him on as putting sense into this. And I think that really translates into, our approach today. We operate now 36 live properties in 10 countries, and ultimately, we're still we've grown 3x since the start of the year, and yet we are profitable. So from our perspective, we figured out this lean approach and have been just very pragmatic, great customer market fit, lean approach where we run 1 FTE per property. Yet on the other side of the ball, we also have just been prudent about leases, and really helped us make sure that we don't end up running this thing off the cliff because we can't scale that.
And it seems like, a lot of your competitors might be in some of the major, the London, the Barcelona, the Madrid, the Milans, but you guys are are going into some of the major ones, but also diving into some of the more micro or B type of cities, which I love. I quite prefer the smaller cities personally. But what led you guys to going into Lubeck or Tallinn instead of one of the major traditional markets?
Well, I guess Talon was me and the German co-founder. He was based in Dublin at the time. I was based in Helsinki, but nobody in Helsinki or Dublin would give us a commercial property because hey, these two kids, what the heck do they know? And so the first property we actually found in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, one of the smallest countries in Europe. Super pragmatic country, a very dynamic city, most unicorns per capita in Europe. But of course, from or most unicorns per capita, I think in out of any capital in the world. But at the same time, of course, does feel a bit like the periphery, particularly from an international context. But that's where we found our first property. So that also gave us a bit of comfort. Is hey, we can deal with smaller metropolitan areas. However, from an ethos perspective, we're building a pan-European household name. We are filling a void in this sector that doesn't have standards nor brands, and we have a fabulous platform to do that because we only need 1 FTE per property, and just allows us to scale like no other. But so for us, it's really having European coverage, and the metropolitan cities and the key cities within the countries and the markets make sense. But of course, we've looked at it opportunistically. And in the case of Lubeck in Germany, for example, we acquired a company that was in the major cities, but they had 1 property in Lubeck. And we thought, hey, well, there's 350,000 people. That's big enough market to have a good mix of B2B and B2C.
Yeah. So I think Will and I are definitely in agreement on the branding aspect of short-term rentals. Now, when you look at some of the other companies, again, maybe more American-based, like Vacasa, if I ask my next door neighbor if they've ever heard of Vacasa, I can almost guarantee you the answer is no.
Yep.
The only brand name in America for short-term rentals is Airbnb. So what scale do you guys have to have for you to actually be a household name in Europe?
Well, I think there's a couple of stepstones to get there. So we don't have the Coca-Cola budget, as very, very few of us do. So it's a question of what markets are you going to own in terms of awareness and in terms of customer base? And we have a very strict focus there of this sort of Airbnb generation, right? And the companies that employ them. And of course, those are usually early adopters. And where do early adopters usually come from? They're probably creative industries and tech and this kind of thing. So our focus has really been to make sure that we are catering to those key cities and arteries where they have a high presence, which for Berlin, London, Helsinki, Tallinn, Estonia are some of the key markets for that. So that's our approach is let's build that awareness in and satisfy the product market fit really heavily to this segment, and then we can go further afield, because again, it is so massive that for us to get to a Hilton or a Coca-Cola status, it's going to take a long time for sure. And what we want to do is be the most loved product on the market for our segment, and through that really build a brand for that, which is a really broad niche in the grand scheme of things, but focus on certain geographies and focus on that sector and build that awareness. But inevitably, that's going to take some time.
I'm curious, and to make it relevant for where I'm currently at, I'm at the Vacation Rental Association conference here in Orlando, and a lot of the conversations I hear, these bigger property managers, they're mostly single family homes. There's a few kind of the multifamily realm, but the conversation and scale, right? Like there's this, I was just visiting the Operto office in Canada, and the conversation scale and fail, and the things that help people scale and the things that make people fail. It's kind of the
Yeah.
whole, marketing end, love it. Good message. But I'm very curious because I think what we've seen, there's been, I think maybe 2018, 2019, 2020, a lot of people get into short-term rentals. They're just like, all right, I'm going to grab any properties I can. So, and I'm guilty of this. And I use myself as an example publicly to make sure like, hey, like I know this doesn't really work that great. Properties in Florida to properties in Washington to properties now in Canada. It's like, all right, we're spread thin on, we're not venture backed and we have no real investors. We're all bootstrapped. So it's a little bit different. But
Yep.
with this type of markets, spreadness, how do you guys feel about density versus kind of going like a mile deep versus a mile wide? Do you guys have a discussion when it comes to the Bob W brand in Europe? When do you have enough density in a market to accept another one, or to kind of scale within a certain region, as you're remaining profitable and lean and building your own tech and having your own ops in the back end?
Yeah. So, I mean, super interesting question, and I think these times, especially as a lot of cash has left the markets in terms of whether that be banks or investors, it's a good time to think about, do I have a viable business on my hands, and if it ain't, what do I need to do to make it a viable business? Um, and I think if we look at this, we could be today. We've got 3,000 units in the portfolio approximately, and if we look at it from today's perspective, that if we were to, this could all be in just London. As I understand, one of your other co-hosts, she's not here today, is that she's got most of them in two cities or two areas. You could go that depth route, and that certainly has a lot of value to it. And so, all the respect to her and those kinds of business models, more broadly speaking. So for us, we really wanted to create, the brand that's equivalent to this new standard in a new category of, this hybrid category. So we understood that from an equity story perspective, we need some geographic coverage. If we're just in one city, I mean, cool, but also, we're not going to have that equity story, nor are we going to have that horizontal coverage that then builds loyalty and allows you to, service a network of businesses, etc. As we're about half consumers, half business. So we looked at it from that perspective as, okay, we got to have coverage. We will also have certain regions where we specifically focus on depth from that perspective. So we're in effectively apart hotels, right? Or, service department blocks where commercial zoning is allowed. So we can profitably manage our smallest ones, 8 units. We've got, it's one of our most profitable properties actually. And our largest one's over 200 units. So we can do the scale. We have 1 FTE per property, and that means we can, unlike a traditional hotel, we don't need to hire a team. I mean, we're operating Amsterdam, 2 new properties, 126 units and just under 30 units. We've got 4 FTE on the ground. Cleaners are outsourced. So we can go to a new country with 4 people. Now, traditional hotel ain't going to go to a new country, set up a new hotel. They're going to need a lot more properties, and a big part of the strategy. Now, what we can just go is we can go in very light, and that's thanks to the technology and the platform that we built around with this tech, which allows us to scale. So even though you could say, okay, these guys don't have focus, they're already pushing into 16 cities across 10 countries in Europe. Actually, we're such light on our feet that we can operate. Every market that we operate is profitable, period. So we can do that in such a light scale, and that allows us to do that. So I think from a business perspective, whether that's single units or multi-units or however anybody runs, you got to look at and understand the fundamentals of your profile. Our first 5 apartments were individual apartments. And we obviously then started saying, this whole cleaning, logistics, operations is going to be hell. Let's do commercial properties. And we let go of those 5 individual, resi apartments, and we got our first commercial property, 41 units. And we've never looked back since then. Of course, in Europe as well, there's a lot of legality vows, like similar that we've seen in New York recently. So we want to be on the right side of legislation.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think like a lot of people either listening to this episode or even us would be a little skeptical on that, like, 1 FTE per property. But, hearing the service scores, I think if you're able to back it with the quality of service still being in play and not like, unfortunately to name companies like Kasai, where I think they definitely went the scale, let's get to this, spreadness and then, the quality, goes down on top of many other things that make it, non-viable as a business. But I think, the fact that you guys can balance that makes it be like, okay, like it is doable, right? It's just not easy. And so I think, kudos to you guys on that. And I'll let Michael take the stage. I know he's got a question.
Well, no, I mean, I love it. In some of those cities like Amsterdam, it's really, really hard to get hotel licenses. So if you have them, they're extremely valuable. And how are you guys addressing some of the cities that have really big backlash, like Amsterdam or Barcelona, against over tourism? And does that weigh into your financial co-founders' math when exploring new markets? Because you could have a result like New York that comes out with a flat out ban. If you're licensed to, yes, you're kind of insular to it, and it might in fact turn it into a better market for you. So how do you guys think
Listen,
about this?
from a Karmar's perspective, I don't want anything bad to short-term rental operators, but we take zero operational risk, which means that we are under hotel licenses or service department licenses and stuff like that. So we do, to a certain degree, probably benefit from those bans. Again, I think it's bad for the industry. And again, important to remember, of course, is that when they say, oh, Airbnb is banned in Amsterdam, actually Airbnb isn't banned in Amsterdam. It's doing
Single host.
resi, resi hosting in resi buildings with any platform, including Airbnb. So from our perspective, we of course, we only enter a market if we can enter a market. So can we get the right kind of hotel licenses, etc. Our Amsterdam Nord property is effectively 120. It's the last hotel license that was given in the inner city of Amsterdam. We didn't know that. I mean, we rent or we lease or manage.
Yeah, no more. Just gas cars, no more in Amsterdam.
Exactly.
So exactly. We're running up on time, Niko, and we like to end with some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So try and keep them short and sweet. But
that's not my forte, but I'll try.
Try one word if you can.
Yeah.
So beach or ski?
Ski.
City or countryside?
City.
Cross country ski or downhill ski?
Both.
Okay, you're crazy. Cross country skiing is just insane to me.
Hey, I'm born from the Arctic Circle. We came out of the womb with skis. Yeah.
So dream exit: IPO, sell to a hotel flag, or keep it forever?
We love what we're doing. I think to unlock more resources and take to next level, there's likely an exit there, which doesn't necessarily mean that we're out of the game with co-founder and the broader team. I think IPO is a dreamy, lofty goal, but it's got a lot to do with timing and market sentiment and all that stuff. So I think we're not focused on our personal exit from a business, but from a maturity perspective, I think that there's a sort of private equity or IPO or, and private equity can be, leverage buyout, or it can be a propco opco play at some point, and that could unlock the next series of growth in there. I think a lot of times, if you look at us, we've been akin to some of the more design-focused hospitality operators like Hoxton and 25 Hours and Ennismore. We're a more pragmatic, apartment version of that. But like I could totally see us also unlocking a lot of value, not just with our brand and targeting this Airbnb generation growing up, but also the technology which can be rolled out to other platforms. So I think the strategic sale to a hotel network actually makes a heck of a lot of sense. The question is, are the hotel execs going to get into the technology generation, and how long it's going to take them? Or is it going to be the next generation of hospitality execs that only figure it out? So time will tell.
Interesting. All right, last question. What is the biggest challenge in the business today? Short and sweet.
I know everybody in the industry keeps saying it's finding good people, but we're very fortunate. Of course, we have that challenge, but we're fortunate we don't actually need a lot of people on the ground. Probably, this uncertainty in the sort of global financial market and this kind of thing, it doesn't, I'd like to know how gun-ho we should be growing and developing and investing into technology. And when the world's a, unstable place where we don't know, is there going to be capital on the market, or will the banks lend, or is there a private equity that would be flush enough with cash to take us to the next step at some point in the near future? That lack of foresight probably leads us to, really not know exactly, or not having a clear view of the plan. And but I think that goes across industries.
That's everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting year nonetheless. I think everyone hit some records in 2022. 2023 has been all over the place, and there's certainly a lot of uncertainty and fear going into 2024. So best of luck. We certainly will be keeping tabs. We hope expansion continues well. According to your website, you've got a lot of new cities opening up soon. So I can't imagine the sky miles you're racking up traveling to all these places. But
I'll trying to use the train too to keep the carbon footprint down. But there certainly is a lot of locations we're going at, and just lucky that we've got such a badass team that can just copy paste this stuff into one city after another.
I love it. Well, hey, Niko, I know you're also heading off to vacation. Finally, a good week's off. No email,
Amen.
no text, no calls, and nothing. So, thank you for doing this show on the last day of your working day before you head out. We really appreciate it. I loved our episode together on Slick Talk, and to chat it up here on Good Morning Hospitality, where we do have a good listener base out in Europe who could look up to Bob W. and what you guys are doing. It's pretty cool. So, I want to say we just appreciate you being on the show.
And I appreciate what you guys are doing to the industry. We need to, as an industry, really stick together to push, to develop, so that we can be a force for good.
Amen. Well, all of our Good Morning Hospitality listeners, make sure you like and subscribe all things Bob W. And like always, you'll see the amazing crew next week. And we have, of course, our hotel crew happening this Wednesday. So make sure you tune in.